You know, when I look around at all the entrepreneurs who are grinding it out, spending 70 to 80 hours per week growing their business, you have to ask yourself the question, at what cost? Hi, my name's Tim Uchuk, and in this podcast, we're going to be exploring the tools, tactics, and strategies for crushing it and scaling your business without making the ultimate sacrifice of your time and freedom. Hey, what's up guys? Tim Uchuk here, coming to you from snowy Vancouver Island on a Sunday. It's actually Valentine's Day at the time of this recording. And we had a huge dump of snow yesterday, which is unusual for us on the island here. But it's been fun. We built a snowman outside this morning, and my neighbor has a pretty big tractor, so they had to outdo us, and they built it's like a 15-foot snowman in their yard. Your neighbor's always got to one-up you, right? So anyways, just jumping on here, a couple minutes between here and picking up our dinner, and I wanted to share with you a conversation that I had. This is a marketing focused episode, conversation that I had with one of our clients who has engaged a marketing agency to help them with pay-per-click ads. So when people search for, he's got a service business, home service business, and when people search in his area, he's in Australia, when people search in his area, an ad pops up in Google and he pays per click, right? So pay per click is what we're talking about. And the question was around results and holding your agency accountable. And what often happens with, there are so many marketing agencies out there, and what often happens is we don't have good information in terms of really understanding and knowing whether or not they are performing or doing a good job. And oftentimes we can find ourselves, you've got your retainer, plus you're paying out of pocket a couple $100, sometimes a couple $1,000 every month, and you're hoping that your marketing is working, but you're not quite sure. So this was the topic of conversation, and it's unfortunate from my perspective how many business owners are, I don't want to say taken advantage of, but they're in that position where, they get the report every month or every week, and it's showing them, the amount of traffic that's landed on your website and the number of leads you got, but it's not very actionable information in terms of, okay, here's how we're doing. We're doing better than last week, we're hitting our targets, etc. It's not very actionable. So what we discussed and what I shared with him is what we do to hold our marketing accountable. I used to run all my ads myself up until, I started running out of time. I enjoyed it. I wanted to learn how to fish. I didn't want the wool pulled over my eyes if I were to hire somebody else to do it. So I wanted to, not everybody needs to go out there and learn how to create ads and run ads and stuff like that. But I wanted to learn it so that I could ask some dangerous questions and understand what was going on behind the scenes. And if I did hire or outsource, I could hold them accountable because I understood it. So what I found is, and it's funny, I probably sound like a broken record, but my recommendation and advice often will come down to the principle of what gets measured improves, and what gets measured and reported improves exponentially. And again, the best example is the digital speed sign, where you figure out what does healthy look like, what's the measurable, and how are we doing against the measurable, right? So digital speed sign says it's a 50 zone, you're going 78, starts flashing. So that's all you really want to do is understand, okay, what does the result look like measurably when it comes to ads, and measure it and measure yourself against it on a recurring basis. And what we do every single day, it's a 5-minute exercise, is we track it on a spreadsheet. We find out, okay, how much money did we spend yesterday on ads? And it shows the relationship from the ad all the way through to the sale, which is what you want to know, because ultimately, if we begin it with the end in mind, the reason why we pay for ads and hire agencies to send traffic and leads our ways, ultimately is we want to, convert people who are qualified into a paying client. That's ideally where you want to get to. But a lot of business owners, again, they don't understand what is our allowable cost per acquisition. So in other words, how much can I afford to spend to acquire a customer? If you have this information, it's very, very powerful, because as soon as you start to run ads, you can very quickly establish targets and figure out, okay, are we profitable? I know that we spent this money, we paid for the monthly retainer if you're working with an agency. We spent this money on ads, but what did we get for it? So to figure that out, what I've done is I understand what my allowable cost per acquisition is, and I'll give you a couple metrics that I look at. One of the most important metrics is the return on ad spend. People often refer to this as ROAS, return on ad spend. So basically, it's just I put $1 in and I get $2 out if you've got a 2x return on ad spend. So oftentimes, in what I look at for one of my thresholds is a 3x ROI. So I put $1 in, I get 3 out, and I know that if that's the case, we're going to cover all our costs and at least beat our break even. So figuring out what your allowable, and you have to work out what is a customer worth to you, what is your average, the lifetime value of your customer, because sometimes, in some of our businesses, we'll sign someone up for a contract where we're doing like a scheduled maintenance, for example, right? So it's that initial transaction isn't necessarily what they're worth to us if you were to look at the value over, let's say, a 12-month period. So if you understand the average lifetime value of a customer, you understand your margins, and you work back, okay, based on these things, what can we afford to spend to acquire a customer? So you start there, and then on the spreadsheet, we basically work back to, okay, we've got a customer. In front of the customer, we have, the sales call, for example. Understanding, a little bit of a bumpy road here. Understanding what is on average, our sales conversion rate. So that means your sales rep or somebody reaches out to you. It's either inbound or outbound. What percentage of those calls are you closing? And I would always err on the conservative if you don't understand this number. But let's say it's 20% for the sake of argument. If your conversion rate is 20%, then that means 1 in 5 calls is going to become a customer. So therefore, if you're acquiring, it could be scheduling a call. Somebody lands on your website and they schedule a sales call with you, or they reach out to you, they fill out a form, right? So how many of those work their way into a sales call? So this is where knowing your numbers is very helpful, right? But essentially, for the sake of keeping it simple, if you are able to track the number of calls that are generated from the ads that you're paying for, and you track your conversion rate, you can quickly start to see and plot it out. If your rate is 20%, you need 5 calls to turn that into a deal. Therefore, what is your average call cost or form submitted, whatever you're tracking? And if it is, if you're paying $20, or let's say it's $100, let's say you're spending $100 to get somebody on the phone with you, and your close rate is 20%, then your sale there is $100 times 5, right? 20% times 5 equals 100%, which makes it $500 to acquire a customer on average. Now, if you have this number and you know what a customer is worth to you, and you know what your margins, your acceptable margins are, then you can quickly you can communicate to your ad agency, either pump the brakes or put the pedal to the metal, right? Because if you know that you can scale through paid ads profitably, then the answer in terms of how far you can take it is dependent on your ability to handle the work, right? If you're scaling profitably, but you're starting to overwhelm your delivery system, then it's a good problem, but you probably want to pump the brakes and figure out your systems, get that stuff worked out. So basically what we're talking about is beginning with the end in mind, and picture it's a very simple spreadsheet. Every tab is a month, and you've got the first of the month going all the way down the column to, for January it would be the 1st. Every row is a day, all the way down to the 31st, and then you work across left to right, starting with how much did we spend on ads yesterday. So if you spent, $30 or $40 yesterday, for example, how many leads were generated based on that amount? And so, if it's 10 leads or 20 leads, you divide your ad spend by the number of leads that came in. That gives you your cost per lead. And of those leads, how many calls, were generated, for example. You plug in that number, and you can start to derive your percentages and costs, unit costs, as you work from left to right on the spreadsheet. But the most important numbers, getting back to holding your agency accountable, is what is our cost per call? What is the cost per lead? How many leads are translating into sales? Ultimately, it's that cost per acquisition. So if you don't have that number, I would work with if you're doing it in-house or you're outsourcing it, work with them to get to the bottom of your cost per acquisition. And then if you have your average lifetime value for a customer, what a customer is worth to you, and you know that what your cost per acquisition is, if you have both of these numbers, you are in the minority. You're definitely in the minority. These are very, very good numbers to have, but the trick is getting to the bottom of it so you can get the attribution, right? So those are just some food for thought, because this is I think this is a area where a lot of business owners get stuck. They know they need the marketing, they just don't know, what it looks like, where to start, and if they're successful at it. And so what I do is I take these numbers and I translate them into, I'm a big stickler for keeping things simple and good visual management. So I use green, yellow, red wherever I can. And so I've got big gauges that are posted every morning for me to look at. And the little needle on the gauge shows if the return on ad spend, for example, if it's in the green, I'm a happy camper. If it's in the yellow or the red, then I start to drill down and we take a look at things, because that means, we're trending towards not profitable. But when you take all of the, complexity of the data, good visual management should send a signal. Remember that digital speed sign. That's visual management, right? It sends a very clear feedback loop that changes the behaviors of the drivers. So rather than just looking at a fancy dashboard or spreadsheet that gives you some numbers, but it's not really actionable, if you can translate that into targets where you've got your watermark, you know that throughout the month, if your numbers are above or below the thresholds that you need, turn that data into a chart that shows, where's the target versus you, rather than just looking at, oh, we got a bunch of traffic this month. Great. What does that mean? So understanding the targets, the thresholds, translating those into a very simple, digestible chart. Gauges are great for that, right? Green, yellow, red. So that and you can, we share it with our marketing agencies, by the way. So we do it ourselves. We share it with them. And it creates just a really good feedback loop. It creates accountability, focus on the right things. So we're not in the sandbox just kind of experimenting. We're focusing on the end result here. So I hope that's helpful. I'm at the place here to pick up the food. Hope you had a great Valentine's Day if you're listening to this this week. Otherwise, I hope that was helpful, and I'll catch you guys soon. Hey, Tim Uchuk here, and real quick, if you enjoyed this podcast episode, if you could take a couple quick seconds to give it a rating, it would be very much appreciated. And secondly, if you're looking for more tools and strategies on how you can crush it in life and business, just head on over to bookwithtim.com, where I've put together a free case study which shows you how to unlock unprecedented freedom today by using the 2 power levers. Just head on over to bookwithtim.com. Until next time, wishing you success and freedom in your business. Cheers.